Imagine walking into your kitchen, grabbing a shaker of black pepper, and realizing you are holding enough wealth to buy a luxury car. In the world of 2026, we see spices as a basic commodity that is cheap, easy, and everywhere. But for 90% of human history, the most valuable thing on earth was not gold, silver, or land. It was flavor. A handful of dried seeds, a pinch of bark, a drop of resin. These were the treasures that could make or break empires. For nearly 1,000 years, peppercorns were worth more than their weight in gold. Nutmeg could buy you a house. Cinnamon could pay off a lifetime of debt. Entire nations were willing to kill, conquer, and risk everything just to control where these flavors came from. Before oil pipelines, before the stock market, and before the internet, the world ran on spices. And the reason why will change how you look at your spice rack forever. To understand the money, we have to understand the problem. Picture Europe in the 12th century. It was cold, gray, and profoundly bland. Most people never traveled more than a few miles from home. Their diets were monotonous and consisted mostly of bread, porridge, and salted meat that had been sitting in a cellar for months. In this world of survival, spices were the closest thing to magic. They did not just make food taste better. They solved problems people could not solve any other way. First, there was preservation. They helped mask the taste of rot and kept meat edible longer. Then there was medicine. Doctors believed spices could cure the plague, treat wounds, and even fix insomnia. But perhaps most importantly, there was social signaling. A dish scented with cinnamon was not just food. It was a flex. It was a statement that you lived above the struggle of everyday survival. Because of this, spices became money. In medieval Germany, pepper rents were common. You literally paid your landlord in pepper. If you had a pouch of saffron, you had an asset as liquid as cash. But there was one massive problem because Europe could not grow them. Every great financial story has a middleman. And in the Middle Ages, that middleman was Venice. Spices came from the far edges of the known world, including India, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka. To reach Europe, they traveled through a brutal relay of merchants. Indian traders sold to Arab sailors, who sold to Egyptian ports, who finally sold to Venetian ships. By the time a single clove reached a banquet in Paris, its price had been marked up by as much as 1,000%. Venice did not own the spice trees. They did not control the source. What they controlled was the bottleneck, which was the point where the goods entered Europe. By the 13th century, Venice had built a near monopoly. Their merchants were the original price setters who manipulated scarcity and hoarded supply in massive warehouses to keep prices sky high. The wealth from this trade turned Venice into a city of marble palaces and naval power. It was the first state to become rich not through farming or land, but through logistics. They controlled the flow, and in economics, flow is power. Because the margins were so high, the merchants were incredibly secretive. They did not want anyone else finding the source. This led to what we might call the first corporate misinformation campaigns. To scare off competitors, Arab and Venetian traders spread wild myths. They claimed cinnamon grew in giant bird nests guarded by monsters. They said pepper grew in forests guarded by venomous snakes that had to be burned away. This conveniently explained why peppercorns were black and shriveled. These were not just fairy tales. They were trade secrets. They were designed to maintain a monopoly by making the supply chain seem too dangerous for anyone else to attempt. But as prices kept rising, the rest of Europe grew desperate. They did not want to explore the world for the sake of science. They wanted to bypass the middleman. This desperation led to the age of exploration. Christopher Columbus did not set sail to find a new world. He was looking for a discount route to the pepper markets of India. He failed at his goal, but accidentally changed history. However, the real shift happened when the trade stopped being about individual explorers and started being about corporations. In 1602, the Dutch founded the VOC, also known as the Dutch East India Company. This was not just a company, it was a monster. It was the first corporation to issue public stock and pay dividends. It had its own army, its own coins, and the legal right to wage war. The VOC realized that to maximize profit, they had to industrialize the monopoly. When they found the Bondi Islands, which was the only place on Earth where nutmeg grew, they did not just trade, they took over. They enforced a scorched earth policy by executing locals who traded with anyone else and burning down trees on other islands to ensure they held the entire global supply. This was the birth of modern capitalism. It was high risk, high reward, global, and enforced by absolute control of the supply chain. The spice machine eventually broke. The French managed to smuggle seeds out and plant them in their own colonies. And the discovery of the Americas introduced new world spices like chilies and vanilla. These flooded the market and crashed the prices. But the logic they built never went away. Today, we do not fight over nutmeg, but the patterns are exactly the same. Replace peppercorns with semiconductors or cinnamon roots with cloud data centers. Think about it. Medieval Venice controlled the sea lanes. Today, tech giants controlled the software ecosystems. The Dutch monopolized origin. Today, superpowers compete over lithium mines and AI chips. History shows us that wealth does not just follow the product, it follows the person who controls the choke point. Whether it is a shipping canal in Suez or a fiber optic cable under the Atlantic, the rule remains the same. Control the path and you control the world. The next time you're in the grocery store spice section, look at that $5 bottle of cinnamon. You are looking at the remnant of a war, the foundation of the stock market, and the reason our modern world exists. If you're curious about how everyday stuff is shaking up the financial world, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe.